Welcome to the See Me, Be Me podcast. And on today's episode, we are joined by Marcia Brissett Bailey. So Marcia, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got started.
Right. So, my name's Marcia, and I would say, just giving you a little bit about myself, because I can speak for England, is that I'm a qualified careers advisor. I've done an MA in special education, and I did my first degree in information science, which is all about firewalls, data protection, all of the things what we're doing now. When I did it was a long time ago, but it's all the current stiff things around information, acquisition of information. Where am I now, really? I think I know I'm an advocate for dyslexia. Dyslexia is what I am dyslexic, and it's something where I feel I have a passion to really empower others to find their voice. Because when I was much younger, I didn't feel like I had a voice. I felt like I was quite alone, a bit of a alien in a way. I felt and just felt like, no one understood me. I felt misunderstood. So I think what's happened within my career, I've always gone to a career where I'm helping others. I've been at the front line of advising, guiding. So I've been a youth worker. I've been a tutor. I've worked in universities. I've worked as a careers advisor in a college for a very long time, for about 11 years. I have been in education, believe it or not, for about 30 years. Wow. So I am an educator. So I feel for me, I've been really blessed to and privileged to work and empower other young people through my career and see them blossom. And that's just my passion, to leave legacy and see people grow and develop. So that's a little bit about myself.
In terms of where you are today, in terms of your career history, how's everything going for you now, Marcia, in terms of your career?
Well, can I just give you a little bit of a background? So when I was younger, as I said, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 16 with dyslexia. And for me, I never felt I was good enough. I always had this kind of imposter syndrome, or feeling that, sabotaging things, because I always felt I was never good, because school was always comparing me with like they felt I should be, or where I should be at. So that really kind of gave me a setback. And I think over time, once I sort of found my voice and found that diagnosis of being dyslexic, it really helped me to sort of navigate the system. And I felt sometimes I had to hack the system to show up. And why I'm saying that, I think it's really important to give context to how I got where I am. So I really had to dig deep, and I really had to use that word resilience, not only from the cultural perspective, but also from finding the place to learn to ask people when I needed help, because that wasn't necessarily the way, when I was growing up, you don't tell people your business, you don't chat this, you don't ask people nothing, you just find your way. So why I'm saying that is because it was really instrumental for me to get into where I am. And it was because I didn't have it, I wanted to help others. So me going into getting a degree I was the first person in my family and first generation. So it's kind of like a building block of building and resilience that got me to where I am. So where I am today, I mean, I can't believe it, Blair. I've actually featured in Forbes, and I was like, what's Forbes? Forbes magazine. I'm like, Forbes. And it kind of struck me over time that what people are saying is that I'm an influencer. I'm like, how am I an influencer? But I just found my voice. And used the platform and of social media to start telling my story, to change that narrative. So and make representation important, to leave legacy. So from being an educator, careers advisor, to writing my own book. So I'm an author of the book called Black, Brilliant and Dyslexic. It really was about being able to change that narrative and say, actually, I can do this. I'm not waiting for somebody. I'm going to bring that fold up chair and bring it to the table. Why not? So, do you see what I'm saying? So I've done a lot of things that I'm just so proud of, but at the time I was just like pushing through, is what I'm saying. So I've done a whole range of stuff. I've got a little list of things but it's all around helping others and all around supporting others.
I was going to bring that up because you just touched on it. Could you tell us more about your book, Black, Brilliant and Dyslexic?
Can you see it if I do? Yay! So it's called Black, Brilliant and Dyslexic. So I got a publishing deal when we were during lockdown, during COVID, and literally it was like, I cannot believe it. My teachers told me I'd never achieve academically, and here I am getting a publishing deal. It really it didn't really dawn on me. When I was telling my family I've got a published still, they were going like, wow, this is amazing. I'm like, okay, this is the next tick of my thing. And what I did really, my vision was, and I get a lot of visions, I visualize things more before I sort of pan it out and make it reality.
Yeah.
And what I did was just wanted, again, other people. So my book's got 25 other dyslexic, neurodiverse, and what I mean by neurodiverse, it could overlap with dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD. I don't know if anybody in the audience have heard of these names of learning differences, I call them. So in this book, they are telling their experience. And again, for me, it's about representation, because when I was growing up, the first person I knew what was dyslexic, and maybe the audience might not know this comedian and director, Angie Lamar. She was the first person that I knew on the BBC, and she said she was dyslexic. So for me, it was so important, Blair, to have that representation piece, because dyslexia doesn't discriminate. In the sense that, you know, you can come from any culture, ethnicity. And so I wanted to see that representation, just like me, to be in that book. And my daughter's in that book. She's a teenager and she's in that book telling her story. So it inspires not just older people, but the generation. And it's interesting, some of the same journeys, even though we're gaps apart in, you know, in terms of our age group. So that shows us we've still got work to do. And that makes me passionate to be able to keep pushing through. And so that book is out, and it's there for a lifetime. It's going to be there to be able to speak, and it's got quotes as well as chapters of people's stories.
Marcia, you truly are a trailblazer. I mean, you've been named top 50 influential neurodivergent women in the UK. You've been a top 80 neurodiversity evangelist in the UK as well. And I mean, what is it like to be recognized as such a massive trailblazer in the UK?
Sometimes I just don't believe. I'm like, how are they saying this about me? But I'm having to learn to embrace it, because it was just something so alien to me initially. Like, people think that, but this is just me doing me and bringing my whole self to the table and sharing my stories and my journey and lived experience. And so for me, I'm owning it now, and I'm accepting it, that I'm an influencer, I'm a trailblazer. I'm like, what? I have to every so often check myself, but I feel it's an honor and a privilege to feel in those positions. And it's important, as I said before, to bring that next generation in, to empower them to bring their voices to the table now. So it's not about me. It's never about me.
And how are some of the different ways in which you raise awareness on being neurodiverse?
So some of the ways, I'm on different boards. I'm a trustee of the Waltham Forest Dyslexia Association, as well as the British Dyslexia Association. I'm on other kind of university boards, like the Neurodiversity in Business, and with Birkbeck University. So I feel that using my expertise, my lived experience and my journey, and also my experience working in the workplace, I'm being able to make change within systems and within organizations through me being on boards. I think my, you know, that's one of the things that I feel that I can leave to say I've made some influence or made some change, had a discussion, and been on been at the table. This thing about being at the table is so important. So for me, those are some of the things, and obviously having the book. My next bit of that is then traveling and taking it internationally would be amazing and awesome, because I know that it's not just happening here, the kind of barriers and those systematic barriers. And we just want to break some of those barriers down and just say we're here, you know? So I just feel blessed and kind of honored that I'm being given these opportunities, and even here talking to you. So it's just great to have those opportunities to share, not my experience, but to say that you can do it too.
Also, just wanted to touch on yourself being a dyslexia advocate. What would you say is some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face in your career thus far?
Being believed, really. People say, you don't look dyslexic. How do you cope? Is it about reading and writing? People are curious, but we're curious because the system hasn't made us aware. And we're curious because we can't understand why you can show up and be yourself. Isn't dyslexia a disablement? It's a learning difference. It's the way my brain's wired, but we're all designed in a different way to bring skills to the table. So mine may be attention to detail or seeing a bigger picture. So we all have something to offer. We all have something to bring. So that's where my advocacy is to change that kind of narrative, to tell people that this is me, and this is by design. This is not a disability in the way that you're dissing it to say that it means your lack of something. It's very much a medical model. We need a medical model, but it's very much of that you lack something. I don't lack anything. What happens is the system's not designed for the way that I work. If I want to write an essay, why do I have to be tested by my memory? Because my short-term memory is really bad. My dyslexia, I'll be like, what did we talk about a minute ago? And it's like, it's not intentionally, but it's really short. But I can remember something when I was 3. So you've got to work with my strengths. So we've got to have a strength-based approach. Soft skills are important too. And we've got to look at the future. As a careers advisor, I'm always looking at skills are always evolving. So we have to change our mindset. And so for me, I'm just always wanting to bring it home that dyslexia is not a disability that it disables you from doing it, but we have to change the system so you can have a strength-based and work on my strength. So an exam, why can't I talk my exam? Why not? Because I'm better. My talking is a stronger strength. But if you're testing me to write, it's going to take me longer. I can do it, but it's going to take me time. I've got to overlearn it and overlearn it. So it's having awareness and understanding, I think, Blair, that people just sometimes don't get, because we're taught that you've got all of these differences or difficulties, as they say. And it's like, well, how can you show up because you need help? I need assistance. Yeah, I put my hands up, but it don't mean I can't be able to do something and show up and be myself. Absolutely. It can be crippling when people are disabling you to not be your best. And there's so many things around mental health and trauma because of it, because people are always viewing you that you can't, there's a lack of something, and there isn't a lack of something. This is the way my brain's designed, and I can bring a lot to the table. I'm provoking in my thought thinking, and that's great for business. It's great when you're an ideas person. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's the kind of conversations I want to have at the table, not what you can't do. It's what you can do.
I want to dive further into it. I mean, like in terms of like mindset, how do you develop that mindset to have that thinking that you can basically go out and, achieve anything that you set your mind to, essentially? How did you develop that sort of line of thinking?
I think it's very embedded in from a cultural perspective as well for me, because I grew up with, and I don't mean this in any way, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think you have to have balance, that kind of tough love. Like you've got to always thinking outside the box and being creative in your thinking. So that foundation really helped, but also I had to have that inner strength and that thicker skin. So when I found out I was dyslexic, I think that was my turning point. It can make or break you. I'm going to be honest, some people, because they didn't get the support, and when they're communicating, maybe not in the way that conforms to society. So behavior is a form of communication, but sometimes just throwing a chair or saying I'm frustrated because I don't get this, people are not seeing that. So you get excluded time and time again, that you don't feel you belong, and you might find other ways of feeling that you belong, and that can be an issue for society, so to speak. But I just feel, for me, my turning point was when the teacher said I wasn't going to be academically achieving, and I thought that ain't me. And that's what drawed me. And then the love of my family keep saying, Marcia, whatever you want to do, we just support you. That helped me to say, gave me time to kind of find myself. And don't get me wrong, I did have the imposter syndrome. And what I mean by that, when you think it's not really you, but it is you are still showing up. But because you've had so much trauma through that school experience, you say, well, that's not good enough. And back in my days, you had red pen. So when you saw that red pen on your work, you're like, so school's got a lot to answer for in terms of nurturing and helping children to feel their self. And I think along the way, I've just had to build my resilience and believe in myself and have those conversations. And also I had to find trusted people that I can share what was happening, and they believed in me too. So that helped me to believe in myself. So it's a lot of different things. I had to do that kind of inner child work of self-love to love myself so I can show up and be myself. And when you've had that kind of trauma, it can be really hard. And all I want to say to people is that don't give up on you. And it's finding those support networks. We call it sometimes your tribe, your village, people who've got your back in a way that you can go to when you need that little advice or you're not sure about something. We all need a bit of guidance sometimes. And we need that community, people who, my granny used to say, you have to have your friends on one hand. So, your people that your go-tos. And so it's building that. I've learned that I'm a big big adult now, but I'm still learning that we never stop learning it, and we're all evolving. You never can say it's like everything's 100%. So with that kind of mindset and that emotional intelligence, which I think some of us who are neurodiverse, we've got a strong emotional intelligence. You're quite in tune to listening, being effective, intuitive in your thinking, and accepting that's okay to think, and no one's perfect. We're always evolving. So that's how I kind of, my mindset sort of geared to. It's a little bit of my background, a little bit of, being out there. I came from Hackney. They would be thinking that's a deprived area, but you kind of know what was the rough and the smooth, and you kind of find a balance. And I've kind of just built that mindset where never give up.
Yeah.
Just have those visions, believe in some of those visions and work through them. Even if you do like one step, then two step, it's not a race. Everything takes time if you really want to give it quality. And there's nothing as failure in a way. You always learn. It's about that's learning. And you just go a different way. Okay, I learned that from that. You ask any entrepreneur how many times they've had to fail before they actually achieve. So it's all of those things. We've got some concepts in life that have been like, you've got to do it this way, you've got to do it, or it's not going to work. Or what does success look like? Over time and lived experience has told me that nothing's perfect. And I just wish I knew that when I was at school, because I was thinking I had to be perfect. I had to be an A-grade student.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I be? Yeah, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I hope that gives you kind of a sense of where my mindset is and how you can sort of get there if you start believing in yourself a little bit and support, basically.
It's just that message that entrepreneurs usually teach. You have to keep trying and trying and trying. And there's almost no such thing as failure, because it's either, even if you do end up failing at something, you're still learning along the way, and then you just get better and better each time.
100%.
But I wanted to touch on as well, Marcia, because you mentioned that you've been in the education sector for over 30 years. Do you feel, though, that the education sector is doing enough to cater to the needs of people that are neurodiverse?
That's a big question. So I've worked for the local authority and just finished 6 months ago. And what I learned from that is a lot of young people still feeling not quite supported, feeling like, okay, you're over there because you're special education. And all of those kind of labels can be really difficult. And then sometimes, I'm going to be honest to the audience, that young people are unkind to each other because they're not getting the right understanding and awareness sometimes within the education system itself. So there's them and you, there's them and us. And so I think there could be much more initially awareness and much more nurturing. And if I was really to really go there, I think we need to kind of restart the education system in a way, because one of the things my son said to me, he goes, "Mum, school feels like it's preparing you to be an employee, not a business owner. Why are we doing these things when we're repeating it? We need to be more entrepreneurial in our schools. We need to engage in the soft skills." I know for sure some of the things we've been taught in schools, like for IT, a young person can do all of that on a phone, but we're not up to that scratch. So there's lots of things that we need to be up to speed. We're no longer in the 19th century. We need to be the 21st century in our educations, because our young people are born into technology and everything's quick, but school just seems slow. It's not ready enough. So that's one thing. And then the neurodiverse thing, it's the same thing. Finding skills, whether it's assistive technology, so you can talk into the system. We need to be up to scratch to in order for young people to access learning. There's nothing wrong with a curriculum, but the curriculum needs to be diverse in its curriculum. Not even talking about history here or anything like that, because that, don't get me started on that, but it needs to be diverse in terms of what it's giving us on the table, so that everybody can access learning in different ways. At the moment, there's an inequality and an injustice in terms of who's accessing, depending on your postcode, where you live. There's not an equality. We're not even talking about people paying for private care. We're just speaking about general support across the board. If your building's not right, do you feel right even going into it? So there's all these kind of intersections that are causing problems, but just the basic learning, and there's an equality in it in terms of how you can show up, just like having the basic technology is a start. Did I give you a bit of an answer? Because there's so much in that. There's so much in that. You don't want to get me started on it, because I'll be here for another few days, talking about this. Let's just break it down, Blair. There's the first one, there's this one, because people want to show up as themselves, and that's what makes them feel like, this is not for me. Education's not for me. And it's like, why not? But it's just it's outdated a bit. I'm sorry if I'm saying that, but it feels a bit outdated. There's nothing wrong with the different styles, but it just needs to be a bit more accessible for everybody and bring it more into the entrepreneurial sense. We want more business skills and more purposeful, meaningful things that are more current. We need that. It's fair because we're preparing people for the future. We don't even know what that looks like. But if you're still teaching them like the basics, neurodiverse. We're entrepreneurs. Ask us as well what we would like.
That's it. I mean, it's some of the programs we've run at the Blair Project in terms of like STEM-based programs. We focus more on like the hands-on sort of activities. So it's just tapping into the potential of the young people who are not, let's say, the best at, writing papers or like passing exams, but they're really good with the hands-on sort of like practical activities, and you're tapping into their potential in terms of seeing them the reality of them working in these different sectors. So it's just one of those things that it's just everyone has their own strengths, but it's just finding the strengths of those particular young people, to be fair. So
and how you base intelligence. So that what you're referring to is that kinesthetic learning, but it's a whole multi-sensory, whether it's auditory, whether it's like textures, whether it's speech. So that's what we need. If we have that, for everybody will be able to have a chance.
Based on your experiences, Marcia, what would you say is the biggest tip that you can leave behind for anyone who's neurodiverse watching this podcast? What's the biggest tip that you can leave from your lived experience?
My lived experience tells me not to give up on yourself. And this sounds a bit clingy, like funny, but to see that light, like at the end of the tunnel, there is something there, and you've got to believe and you've got to dig deep. So never give up on you. There's about a piece about acceptance. This is the way you're designed. This is the way you show up. If we was thinking about like when world begin or whatever, I know I'll be out there finding some way to create something. So that tells me I've got skills in a different way. It's not the linear academic in the sense of writing to become a doctor. And there's nothing wrong with being a doctor, but that's a typical still of memory. But it doesn't mean that you can't be dyslexic and being a doctor. But what I'm saying is that there's just different skill set. Some people have got a photogenic memory, which really works. But have you got the social skills? I don't know. So do you get what I mean? So it's like never give up on you, and you've got your skills, and believe in that. And look for people to find in your tribe who on the same page as you in a way, like can support you, and you can support each other, and also get that professional support as well. And it's sometimes you just don't feel like people are going to understand, but you just keep trying and finding people. And remember, there's no such thing as failure. To me, there isn't. It's just that it means that you just move in a different direction and find another way. And entrepreneurs say all the time, so don't feel you're a failure if you don't get that grade 9. That is not the end of the world. So just so the kind of overall is never give up on you, really, because all of those things will come in line when you keep pushing and finding your aspiration and your, finding your real potential to achieve what it is you want to do.
And then I just wanted to touch on that as well. That some of the people that you've worked with, how hard has it been to essentially change their mindset? Like you went through in your career, let's say, changing your mindset to believe that you can excel in these certain fields. How hard was it? Did you find it difficult to change their mindsets as well? Or
it's the thing is, you don't want to change people's mindset. It's about growth, isn't it? It's growth mindset. So it's about experience, about, I don't want to say maturity, because you can be 10 and be mature in so many ways, and you can learn from each other. But I think what's helped me a lot is being a careers advisor. So through my training and I've done counseling as well, I feel what you do is help people to set goals for themselves. So, okay, so what do you want to achieve? What's your long-term goal? We might start with what's your long-term goal, and what does that look like for you? How do you see yourself? What are you wearing? So all of those kind of things are kind of some of the work that I do, is to do that inner work to understand where that person's coming from, because there could be other intersections. Like I've had some of my young people, their parents want them to be a lawyer. How can we make that work? We can do a combined degree. So you can do law and drama, for example. So I'm always being creative about how to help people to think about how they want to show up. And it starts with you. It's always going to start with you. You can't change somebody. It's got to start with you. So my work, or the things that I do, is about looking at how you want to get there. And also the question, why not? So how are you going to do that? That could be a short, medium and long-term goal. So as a careers advisor, if I was working with a student for 2 to 3 years, we'll work on those and take sometimes pigeon steps, sometimes some elephant steps, but it's how it looks and shows up for you. And as I said, there could be intersections, it could be family problems, there could be all sorts of things that makes you take that little bit longer, or helps you to build your mindset, and also have people that support you and are on the journey with you to encourage you. So it's a combination of so many things there. It's not just one thing, but it has to come from you. I think when sometimes people are just giving it on a plate, it doesn't always come as authentic, and sometimes people don't understand it. But when you've had to do the graft work, the grassroots work, it sometimes it's hard, but you have to just work through it. And remember I said about the commitment, it's doing some of that stuff and doing the work. You go away and do that work. So when my young people come in the office, they're set with the work they want to do, and only you can do that. If I can give you a whole heap of things to do, but you've got to do the work.
Then as well, this might be because you're doing so much, it's just incredible. But is there a particular project that you've worked on the last year what would you say is the most exciting project that you've worked on over the last year, should I say?
I've worked on a project called Not Your Average Entrepreneurs, and I've supported the network in because I'm an informationist as well, because that's my first degree. I love providing information, resources and stuff like that. So that's been an amazing project. And we got to do some research called a homecoming project, where we looked at what people with disability or neurodiverse, how they find themselves in the workplace. Yeah. And that was amazing to actually have a research piece and document of work that I've been involved with. So that's called the homecoming project, and you can find out about that through the Diverse Creative, because it's something you can click onto. And so that's been an amazing part of it. And I've done some great projects with young people. So I did a self-development program, a 6-week program, which I developed myself, and to see how young people came out of that after 6 weeks, honestly, it's just a privilege to see people grow and find their voice in understanding what disability meant, just a whole range of things, and like doing mind mapping, doing your vision board, which is not for everybody. Some people just like bullet points, some people like it visual. So I did a 6-week program, and those two things have been really great. Doing the homecoming project, and through the Not Your Average Entrepreneur, and inspiring people to be entrepreneurs, and also developing my own programs and helping young people to find their voice through understanding what their dyslexia is or their autism is, and how they can sharpen themselves through a program of different things to help create some set skills and tools. So I call it my toolbox. Yeah.
Now, Marcia, I've really, really enjoyed today's episode, and just learning more about your backstory and where you are and where you want to get to in the future. But for our listeners who are tuning into our podcast today, if people want to follow you on your journey, where can they go in terms of social media platforms?
Yeah, so for social media, you've got my LinkedIn, which is Marcia Brissett Bailey. And then you've got my Instagram, which is the Black Dyslexic. And then it's not Twitter anymore, X is just my name as well. So those are the 3 kind of social media. I'm very active on Instagrams, and I do respond to people, and LinkedIn. Those are my kind of go-tos a lot of the time.
Fantastic.
It's been amazing to be here, and I'm hoping that through this conversation today with you, Blair, that we've been able to help somebody think about that kind of mindset piece, about how they can go forth in terms of finding their goals in a way that is meaningful to them to reach their aspirations. So I'm hoping that if we do one person, but we know it's going to be more, that will be really just like warm my heart. Really, it would. And that's why I do what I do.
Feel really empowered after speaking with you, honestly. So yeah, thank you for appearing on the podcast, Marcia. So if you enjoyed today's episode, yeah, please like, comment and subscribe, and thanks for listening, everyone.